Good evening, all. I have 7 p.m. here in Historic Town Hall on December 4th, 2025. I'd like to convene the open meeting, and please be reminded that we are being televised and recorded by Sandwich Community Television. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there anyone here for public comment? Okay. Review and approval of minutes.
Make a motion we approve the minutes from November 20th, 2025.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, 5-0. Town manager report.
So I am pinch hitting this evening, and I have a few updates, and most of them are hopefully of interest of everyone in the room. The first is an update on wastewater. We executed the contract with the Ardent Group for $432,000 for the decommissioning of the Oak Ridge and Forestdale wastewater treatment plants, which is great news in our progress towards compliance with our permits there. Dave Mason will be working with Wright Pierce and Mike Ryan at the school department to schedule that work, so that is really great news. Dave is planning to come in either the 20th or an upcoming meeting just to give us a briefing on some of Sandwich's recent initiatives, including the work at the schools, and to provide an update on work in our abutting communities. We know there's interest in the cluster system in Mashpee. He wants to provide an opportunity to brief the community on the status of that project, which is very much in the design phases and is designed and intended to remove nutrients from shared resources, including ponds in Sandwich. There's also work beginning in Mashpee on their wastewater system on Route 130 beginning on December 15th. So we're hoping to get a little bit more information about what those impacts might be. Anyone who travels towards Mashpee has seen that flashing beacon in the last several days. Historic Town Hall, this building, you're all, I know, interested, and we're really excited about having this project under contract. We do not have a final schedule yet, but we've had our construction meeting. I reported to the select board last week. The general contractor, Verica Construction, a very well-constructed, well-respected construction firm working with Catalyst, our design team, was in again this week, and we really think they're going to be much more surgical in their approach to the renovation, and that they're hoping that this room will be available every afternoon for our use. There may be a few times where we need to find alternate locations, but it's looking like we won't have to be cleared out for the duration of the construction as expected, so we think that's great news. And the construction itself is not expected to begin until April. They're doing all of the ordering of the restoration quality replacement windows, which you can imagine have a long lead time on them. So we'll all be excited to see that project get going later this spring. One of the things you might recall is that improved payroll processes has been something that's been a priority for the school, the town, all of us for several years. We have a nice grant from the Commonwealth to implement a payroll system. Most recently, we've made some really important progress there, and Bill will provide a little bit more of an update during the tri-board section of this meeting in a few minutes. Just a couple of other interesting ones. We had a session this afternoon that was hosted by our harbor master, Nick Giordano, which was a community engagement session on the harbor walk. That was, if you recall, we received a significant design fund from the Seaport Advisory Council to build a harbor walk along the side of Ed Moffett Drive. That design work is underway, and it was a session with stakeholders in the area to make sure they knew what the design might be. We had about 30 participants in that, and we'll be back to bring that information to the board in the not too distant future. But that was nice to see a process that really focused on the neighbors and the people that may be most impacted by the project, and very positive response from all. That would result in a second grant for the construction, and that's something that we're looking at in the capital plan this this spring to help support, and again, from the revolving fund, from the harbor funds, to support the share that the town would have to contribute should be awarded construction for that project. So that's a stay tuned and look forward to a really nice project. And then from a holiday standpoint, we're moving into our holiday weekend this weekend, and board members may report on this a little bit more later, but Friday evening, tomorrow evening, is the community carol, which I believe is held out here, and then later in the weekend on Sunday is the stroll from 2 to 5 in downtown, both awesome events for the community to participate in for the holiday season. And then lastly, just for organizational purposes, after the tri-board meeting, I'll work with the chair, and we'll have a quick recess so that we can set up for our tax rate classification workshop. So as you all filter out, we'll be moving some tables around. You're all welcome to stay from that, but the presentation is just a little different than the setup we have here. So that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody with any questions or comments for Ms. Harper? Okay. Just quickly, correspondence, statements, and announcements. Anyone?
I attended the Commission on Disability yesterday. They made good progress. We had a bunch of town department heads, Paul Tilton, the fire department, talking about upgrades to making, snow, winter advisory things more accessible for the disabled. And they had a good plan in progress with some work there, so it was good.
Thank you very much. Glad to hear. Bikeways met on the 24th, and obviously, due to the weather this evening, I think the ribbon cutting will be in the spring at this point, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to staff meeting, tri-board meeting, initial fiscal year 27 budget overview, planned fiscal year 27 budget schedule, school and town buildings review efforts, and etc. Ms. Harper?
Back to me. I'll start by just saying thank you to all of you for being here. It really is the most important purpose, is to start this process together. It is the reason we come together, is to start the budget process as a team with a goal to finish the budget process as a team. It's the inaugural meeting of our 2027 budget season, and it's crucial that we begin with our chief executive body, our financial committee, our fiscal advisors, and with the school committee and its executive team, supporting one of our most important services and our largest budget service area. As always, in our respective roles, we work together towards the 2027 budget recommendation to town meeting, which, as you know, by law is required to be a balanced budget. We never submit a budget that exceeds our revenues. Unlike other entities in government, we are really required to do so and do that every year. While very early in the budget development process, that is very much underway. We've met with the central management team. 2 members are here today. Caroline Caravan, our town accountant, and Ben Steit, our director of assessing, are here. And there are several others that we meet with routinely through the budget process. And we'll continue to do that through the select board's final budget recommendation, again, which will always be, as required, a balanced budget. Our approach for this year is very simple, a level service budget. We're ever mindful of the need to sustainably fund the budget for this fiscal year, but also to ensure that we can lift this budget up next year and the year after and fund it sustainably in future years. While we expect there'll be more constraints this year than in the recent past, we feel we are in a strong position for fiscal 2027. And talking with our colleagues across the state, we really feel we are in a good position relative to our peers. And Bud will be prepared to provide some context for that. We know that some of our colleagues across the Commonwealth are struggling to continue to meet services in their community. Those presentations will be respectively to the Select Board on the 29th of January, and then on February 3rd to the Finance Committee. And that's in your packet, which I'll refer to in a second. There is no secret that we are in a substantive inflationary cycle for health insurance, which will be one of the greatest pressures that Sandwich sees this year. And of course, for the region and the nation, it is not a local issue, it is a national issue. If the increases continue beyond a several-year cycle, they will not be sustainable for the town or for our employees. We are lucky to be in a strong managed group with the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Program, which continues to provide us savings for those of you that recall, and Bill can talk in detail about that. We moved from another group that had less resilient plans for us and reduced our overall efforts. So our base is lower than it might have been, but the increases are still very significant. We're fortunate that our town manager, Bud Dunham, serves on the Maya board, who's actively monitoring and evaluating program changes for cost containment, but they're very much in a wait-and-see mode because it is a really ever-changing, volatile environment. So they're cautious to make changes, but are planning to do so this winter. Before I turn things over to Bill, Jennings, our finance director, what I'll do is just, I see a question.
I seem to recall that when we had these meetings, we recognized that this is a televised meeting. Our name tags work great for across this, but people at home don't know who we are. So we've had introductions at the beginning of each of these meetings. So before we peel around the table, I would suggest that we do introductions for the folks at home.
Would you like to do that now? Mine is sort of a wrap-up, so I can do that at the end if you'd like to do so.
It's just a suggestion for the chair.
I think it's
it's up to the chair.
I'll start because some of you may not know me. I'm Heather Harper. I'm the assistant town manager. I'll go to my right.
I'm Bill Jennings. I'm the town's finance director.
Michelle Austin, the school's finance director.
Good evening. I'm Dave Quinn. I'm the assistant superintendent.
Kevin Serrault, chair of the school committee.
Danielle Benenda, Vice Chair, School Committee. Now it's on. Oh, and I'm yelling. Tracy. Maybe I'll point it that way. Tracy Goodwin, Secretary. Sue Miller, School Committee, and Chair of the School Committee Subcommittee on Finance.
Alexandra Higgins, School Committee member.
Jeff Picard, Finance Committee.
Nancy Crossman, Finance Committee.
Kevin Klein, Finance Committee.
Matthew Anderson, Finance Committee.
Crystal Smith, Vice Chair, Finance Committee.
Good evening, everybody. Ed Colopy, Finance Committee Chair.
Dave Sampson, Selectman.
Patrick Ellis, Select Board. My apologies for being a nag.
Shane Octor, Select Board.
Robert George, Vice Chairman, Select Board.
Charlie Holden, chairperson of the Select Board, and as we went around this meeting here and introduced ourselves to each other yet again, that it's just such a privilege being associated with all of you. It's terrific boards. We're a fortunate community. Next up, please.
I would echo the sentiment that, we are very fortunate to start in such a collegial way, professionally with, goodwill. And you saw that when everyone was coming in the room, just greeting each other after the summer and talking about, what's going on in our own lives. It really does make a difference when you have to make difficult decisions and have difficult discussions later in the year. So we are very lucky for that. So this was a nice pause, and thank you for that. And so before I do turn it over to Bill, I want everyone in the room to think about the presentations or materials, and particularly the Select Board and the Finance Committee, that would be helpful to you as we move through this year. We thought it was helpful last year to have the three larger general government departments come in together to the Finance Committee, that being the Police Chief Keene, Chief Burke, and Director of Public Works Paul Tilton will come into the same meeting again. If there are other departments that or cost centers that you think you'd like to explore, you can let us know and let either through myself or through Bill, and we'll make sure that happens through the meeting process in January, February, and March. You don't need to let us know this evening, but do be thinking about that as you have a conversation this evening. The select boards will find in their packets on about page 7 or 8 that there is 2 pages of material. There's the 1-page, I'm going to steal Bill's right here, the 1-page budget sheet, as well as the schedule of events for the coming months with the dates very well laid out for you. There are some additional copies in the back of the room if anybody would like them. And I'll turn it over to Bill to flesh out the details as we know them today. And just because Bud isn't here this evening, I will say that we've always been very fortunate, you have for many years, to have one of the most meticulous budget managers in the state, being our town manager, overseeing the budget process. And we've been in really excellent hands in the last few years with Bill taking over that role. And it's really been evident and really helpful to have so many staff involved in that process from beginning to end. So I turn it over to Bill to give us the lay of the land.
Thank you, Heather. So I think what we wanted to do tonight before, we turn it over to the committees to allow their questions and discussion, what have you, is I thought we just provide kind of a general idea of kind of where we're at now and kind of how we go about. We included in the packet kind of our finance calendar, if you will, what we generally refer to the winter as kind of budget cycle or budget season. And people see in the packet, we actually kick off the budget cycle in September. So I begin working on the town's budget in September. We begin pulling all the relevant information we need. As you know, that big binder that everybody gets here in September, we literally start collating that information in September, October. We really start, we finalize the prior fiscal year in September when Caroline closes the town books. We turn everything over to the state by September 30th. So in October, when we know we have really good numbers from the prior year, we begin really working diligently on the budget at that point in time. What we sort of do now in the October, November, early December timeframe is Michelle and I spend a lot of time together. We'll be, Michelle and I will communicate probably almost weekly at this point throughout the budget cycle. We begin to really just look not so much at hard dollar amounts right now, but we really just looking at ranges. And that's really like a percentage range. So we're kind of put together some estimates of where we think things can land in the town's budget. And then what we both plan for, Michelle and myself, is we plan for both up and down. So as if we start to get some good information comes in, if for instance, if state aid comes in higher than we anticipated, we have some wiggle room. And then likewise, we plan for the worst. If we have some negative things come in, and I'll touch base on health insurance briefly, we plan accordingly for that. We don't have, we would not make public or anything like that now, but, we have contingency plans in place for when those things happen. We have to plan for both good and bad. At this point in time in December, we are kind of what we refer to as like hurry up and wait. We're really waiting on information at this point. We really begin to fine tune the budget that we present to both the select board and the finance committee at the end of January. And beginning of February to the Finance Committee, we'll generally have a final budget in place, probably January 15th, January 20th, somewhere around there, but we are literally getting updated information right to that point. So for instance, right now you'll see like all this state aid information I have here on the budget and the state expenses. They're all at zero amount right now. We just keep them flat for right now because we have zero information from the state right now. And we, sometimes in prior years, we've kind of had a little indication at this point whether the state has been having a good year, bad year. We don't have any indication as of yet this year. So, I don't want to say we're going to have better numbers or worse numbers because we truly don't know yet. So we'll probably start seeing those numbers in December. We're expecting our Barnstable County retirement assessment. We generally get that in mid to late December. So those numbers will start coming in. So we're expecting a lot of numbers. That tax recap, which you guys are going to be playing a big role here in about 40 minutes. That'll be finalized soon, so we'll have those levy numbers here probably within a week. So, we'll be able to, so as we start getting more information in, we can really start firming up the numbers. So right now, we're really just talking a lot about estimates and ranges and kind of where we think we're going to land. I know Heather talked about it briefly earlier about probably our main concern for the winter is you're going to hear us talk about health insurance more than you probably have ever heard us talk about it. As you recall, back in 2020, the town went through a major conversion. We left the Cape Cod Municipal Healthcare Group, and we went to Maya, as Heather mentioned a couple minutes ago. That has served the town incredibly well. I got to be honest, I would be very worried if we were not in Maya today. As anybody that turns on the news and sees it, health insurance is a major issue, not only here in Sandwich, but obviously nationally. We are probably looking at the biggest increase I have seen since I've been working for Sandwich, and I've been here since 2013. There is a very good chance, if you will, if you look at how much we get to increase for 2.5, health insurance is probably going to make up anywhere between 70 to 85% of that number. It's going to be significant. So what that causes us to do is obviously to adjust accordingly. But it's becoming challenging. The health insurance it's a challenge. I just put it that way. We have gotten an early estimate from Maya that we're using currently on the budget number, but we will not have the final number from Maya, what we know our final number will be, until mid to late February. So unfortunately, what's going to happen is we're going to present to you the budget in January, with the caveat being that we may have good news or we may have bad news that we're going to have to deliver to you probably within 2 to 3 weeks. But so, as any of you that know Bud and know myself, we're conservative with these numbers. And so right now that, we're going to be using conservative numbers because I think that's how you have to budget, especially in a municipality. I would love to see that number improve. I just don't know if it's going to. Everybody's struggling with health insurance. There are towns out in Western Mass right now that are going through 18 to 25% increases in health insurance costs. We are lucky. Maya is probably the biggest, besides the GIC, Maya is the second largest joint purchase group in the Commonwealth. So that has provided us a lot of stability. The reinsurance has been incredible. That's really helped us quite a bit. But there are some small joint purchase groups throughout the Commonwealth that are really struggling. The GIC itself last year needed a bailout from the state to get solvent last year. So health insurance is a major issue. I know over the last couple of years, we've been able to do a lot of good things like the FY25 and beyond, the extra money for the roads, the fire overtime a couple years prior to that. We're not really going to be talking about those things this year because you're going to see from the town and I believe from the school as well, just you're essentially for lack of a better term, a vanilla level service budget is what you're going to be seeing from us. And if the news gets better, we're going to be, hopefully be able to put some more money in capital, stabilization, OPEB, things like that. But I think for right now, we're bracing for health insurance, and we're just preparing as we have to. And so we're ready to go. We're ready. Michelle and I, like I said, we talk quite a bit, and we're both ready. And if it comes, we have to go up, we have to go down. We'll go ahead and we'll do it.
Excuse me, Heather?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just sort of echo that it is a major concern. For those of us that have been in local government for a long time, we know that we saw the same type of adjustments in health insurance in the early part of the 2000s. And, we made it through that. It's very difficult. There are a lot of changes that have to be made if that is the case, if this is a sustained increase over a long period of time. We'll be not only working with our own employees and insurance agencies, but we'll be working at the state level on adjustments. Again, it is a national issue. It is not a Sandwich issue. We're very well protected in terms of high cost claims in the town. We do a great job. I can't say enough about the work that's done with our own safety committee, our own wellness committee, and those things really do make a difference in the types of claims that we see. So there's a lot of cost avoidance that happens in Sandwich, and we are focused on that. So there are some good things that are happening. We feel good about this fiscal year's budget. We've budgeted in the current budget that you see a number that we think is a conservative number. We're really hopeful that we will either hit it or come in below that, but really it is outside of our control. And I would just note that while you see a negative number at the bottom of the right corner of the balance sheet, it is not an extraordinary number for a budget of this size. And we feel that as all of the cost centers come in and the revenues come in, that we will be in good shape for presenting a positive balanced budget for this fiscal year. This really is a note of caution, both for this year and looking forward, that it's something that we have to keep mindful of. And I just want to recognize and respect the school administration, and David on the way in said, they recognize the cost pressures of health insurance was one of the first things he said to me when we walked in this evening. And the school's been a partner with us for many years in terms of trying to make sure their budget comes in within the revenues that we have available to support it. And we've done some things to make sure that when additional revenues come through, we make them available at the next town meeting. And, we work together to make sure that everyone gets what they need to lift up the budget from one year to the next, and that really is the goal. So I really thank them for that. It's important to have that relationship. I don't know if David or Michelle want to offer any other comments, or the school committee. Sorry.
Sorry?
I'll add one more thing. I'm sorry, David. And then the number you see on the budget, with the negative 600,000, it's net. I'm not worried about that number now. And Michelle and I were talking right before the meeting started. I remember back in 2013 and 14 when Michelle and I would take a first look at the budget, and it would be minus $2 million, minus $2.3 million. The town is in very good financial health, and we're in good shape. We just need to be prepared for, like I said, these concerns that are outside of our control. We're doing, Heather makes an excellent point. We have so many programs in place. Maya has so many programs in place that we're doing everything we can to help reduce costs. But right now, overall, I would say we're in a very good place right now financially. Just health insurance is it's a concern that's out there. But again, Michelle can speak to it. We used to do this in 2013, 14, $2-3 million in the hole as of today. So we're doing better than we were 10 years ago. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. You basically took the words right out of my mouth. I think this is, I haven't been in Sandwich a long time, but one thing that has been impressed me is just how well fiscally this town is run and how sustainable the approach that's been taken. There's a focus on quality, but sustainable quality. And that's been the mindset that's going into our preliminary budgetary conversations. We've met with all the principals and the department heads at this juncture, and we've presented the initial level service budgets. We will continue to look forward to try to find additional efficiencies. We do not have any new positions, and we'll look as we have retirements coming in to pass those savings along to the budget. So again, we just want to make sure that we're providing a high quality education in line with our strategic plan. Thank you for all of you who have participated in that process, but also to ensure that we're sustainable for the years to come as well. I'll turn it over to Michelle. Nothing to add.
Good evening again, Kevin Strault, Chair of School Committee. Just as following on what Dave said, we do have not to speak for the Finance Subcommittee Chair, our Finance Subcommittee will meet next week, and then, week and a half from now. But then we hit as soon as we come back from the new year, we do all our budget meetings. Our budget hearing is January 28th, so that's when we'll be voting on our budget to turn back to you based on whatever updated numbers we have. And we'll be working towards that. We do have a couple, Chair of the Finance Committee reached out. The building study, we still do not have it yet. I don't know if you have, Dave might have a little bit more of an update on that one.
Yeah, we spoke with Habib and Associates today. They have promised to deliver the report on or before January 16th.
And while that's not going to impact necessarily this operating budget, it is going to, be something we need to consider in the out years. We are also undertaking a transportation study to try to make sure our bus routes are as efficient as they can be. And I do expect some savings to come there. I don't want to promise anything yet because we don't have the study back, but we do think that the small investment we made in that study is going to be money well spent. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Quinn and Mr. Sorrell. Michelle Austin, what do you have on this, if anything?
I can just add exactly what, Bill said. The $597,000 does not scare me. It'll be something that we can work together to alleviate, and we'll have a positive budget when it rolls around. I'm sure of it. Schools will do whatever we need to do to come into the parameters that Bill wants us to come in at.
I can agree with the teamwork. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else from school?
I'll just make one plug. Ms. Harper mentioned a couple things going on in town. I'd be remiss if I did not mention the Last Best Crafts Fair. It's happening at the high school this Sunday. It is I think it's 8 to 2 it goes, but it's an all-day fundraiser. All sorts of different vendors, all handmade crafts, and it's a fundraiser for the PTSA. So before the stroll, come visit the high school.
Sunday will be a busy day in Sandwich. It's a good thing. Anybody else? School committee? All right. Finance committee?
I'll just comment that we stand ready to look forward to the input from the town and schools relative to the budgets this year. I think, my aim would be to focus in on kind of the continuing topics of the past of maintenance and what we're doing on that on both the town and in the schools. So I think that area is still an area that needs focus. And I appreciate the updates on the transportation study and the building study, but I would say that on the building, that I had hoped that by having some input in relative to it before the budget is locked down, that would have an opportunity to consider perhaps some of the recommendations that are in it that might be able to be accomplished on a short-term basis, but give us some long-term life to stuff. So I understand that, it's all close in timing, but would suggest that perhaps we consider how we might begin to address the study rather than putting it off for another year.
Thank you. There was a hand up over here. Yes.
Bill, just if you could, Sue jokingly, this is my Mike Miller question of the evening, in watching the regional news and reading the paper is that, I don't think we're going to get a real picture this year. And just for the people at home, so that they understand, what percentage of the state, if the state comes back with a really bad number, because they haven't, in years past, they've always given the number well in advance because I think they know, this isn't bad. When they hold the number back to a very late date, it's typically not good news. It's not like we found an extra $1 billion somewhere and everybody gets a refund. But what does that look like on the spreadsheet for those that look at this spreadsheet? If we got really bad news or moderate bad news, then if it came in late, how does that alter the process?
Yeah, so kind of like if you recall at special town meeting, we had that Article 1 to vote extra Chapter 70 money. I think what people always confuse is, when we have to vote the town of Sandwich budget in May, the state isn't done with their budget. The state, I think the last 2 summers have been late. I believe it was first week of August this year. I guess I'm a little concerned too, because to your point, if we know there's a real rosy outlook coming, like, hey, generally that word gets out. I'm not privy to the state finances. There's been some rumors that the state is not seeing the sort of tax, revenue that they've seen in the past. you know, and that's why we have everything at 0 right now. You know, and to my point earlier is we're ready to go up or down, you know, and I think, you know, we hopefully won't go down too much. What, you know, it's always, to be honest with you, the state numbers, the number that always concerns me is the charter school assessment. That's the number that can really hurt us and has hurt us in the past. If you look at, you know, the charter school assessment, you know, and I know we've spoken about it ad nauseum now, you know, that's generally 5 to 6 to 7% of the town's budget right off the top, before we even start day one of the fiscal year. So that's the number that always concerns me. I'm hopeful that we see some good state aid numbers. You know, the extra Chapter 70 we got was wonderful. You know, every administration does the budget a little differently. So, you know, and so it may be a case where we have to go next November if Chapter 70 is, you know, extra Chapter 70 comes in. But we're ready to go no matter what. You know, and like to Ed's point, I'm sorry, I'll try to wrap up quickly. But, you know, the budget, as you all know, the budget, you know, we are going to present to you a balanced budget at the end of January. Even then, that budget we generally give you at the end of January changes somewhat, not drastically, but there are changes throughout the budget cycle depending on that information. So again, we're always ready to go up or down, ready to make changes as necessary.
Thank you. Ms. Harper.
I would just add that there's the feast or famine approach. That some communities off Cape particularly are much more reliant on state aid than Sandwich and other Cape communities. So it is a smaller portion of the budget than you might see in other places. While the impact is real, generally when there is a curtailment of state funding, whether it's for schools or for general government, which is a very small portion of the budget, that we are able to absorb those by either reductions in spending or increases in other revenue sources, which we try to avoid. Because once you start increasing those other revenue sources, it cuts your capital funding and your availability for the next fiscal year. So we try to avoid that. And I'd also say that the administration has been very supportive of local government, and that they've made some commitments there. We certainly can't anticipate what that funding might be. Certainly they have been supportive of local government for the last many years, and we're hopeful that they'll at least meet, the minimum standards they've committed to. So it's not a huge fear factor, but it's something that we're always anticipating could result in some reductions.
All right, we'll maintain that hope. There was a hand up over here. Smith? No? Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. Mr. Klein, excuse me.
That's okay. Bill, just a quick question. I don't want to go online. Chapter 70 budget. Is that, I see it's 0% increase. Is that from last year's budget, or does that include that additional money we got at the end?
So that just includes what we voted at town meeting. Again, just to be conservative. And again, we're early.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So in years past, when we were facing a similar situation and even worse, we would go with something like, say, a 3% and say, if we had to go to, say, a 3%, what does that do to the needs of, say, the schools? And I would like to see that being prepared, and just in case something happened, and also to allow us to appreciate what we could lose if we didn't have this money, or if something happened, what tough decisions had to be made. So, we're looking at 3.5 now, and I don't want to say it always used to be, but it was like we would start at 3 and then we would go up from there. If we didn't get more than 3, these are the programs that would be affected. So I think that would be helpful.
And I'll speak to that. Again, Michelle and I are, again, in contact quite a bit. And, really what I started to do when we're at the stage now where we're really just giving ranges, and the range was, you come in between 3.5. I put 3.5 in here right now, just because that's kind of where the estimate is. Again, the numbers will change. I think it's premature to talk about cutting per se, because, as like finance director, I'm looking at everything, the whole entire town, school included, Upper Cape Tech included, so what we try to do is just look at the budget as a whole. In the perfect world, we're not cutting from the school, we're not cutting from general government, we look for different areas we can do it. If we had to come to that, and Michelle and I would have a conversation, and then I'm sure Michelle then would have that conversation with Dr. Maruschek and the appropriate people on the school side. We're not there yet. I certainly don't want to, this is not a doom and gloom budget in any way, shape, or form right now. What we have right here for health insurance, we have estimated that health insurance is going to go up 15% on this number on the sheet right now. My guess is we're going to come very close to that, if not a little higher. But we're prepared. If that number came in a little higher, then we'll make the necessary changes as well. But I think it's premature to say, hey, we should immediately start at 3. I don't think we're there yet, Nancy, to be honest with you.
And I'll just add, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. The town manager's prepared with a presentation that will talk about where some of that flexibility might come in this fiscal year and the next several. So we're not in a position to do that yet, but we're working on that, and we'll have that for you at the end of the month, end of January.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Batcher.
Yeah, just to bolster some of the confidence that Bill and Michelle have with experience, is that Sandwich, probably a 20-year period, had 0 excess levy capacity. We're looking at 3.1. That's a figure that was not, we never even dreamed about that years ago. And we were a tight enough community fiscally that, try to imagine this. In 1993, when we built the Oak Ridge School and Forestdale at the exact same time, the annual budget for the town of Sandwich was $14.7 million a year. And the 2 schools cost $33 million to build. Think about that. Think about how we reacted as board members, finance committee members, and people at large about a $58 million proposal for public safety and fire with a $100 million budget. So things don't always stay the same. And one of the things where we can have that kind of confidence is that we do have that kind of excess levy capacity. We can make shorter adjustments to get through times that are different. I won't call it hard times. Times that are different.
In comparison, Mr. Ellis, thank you very much. Mr. Searle.
Thank you, sir. Just to follow up on 2 points, I'll stick with the confidence of Mr. Jennings, but if it did come to a point where we had to go to 3 or some other number, whatever that number might be, and we had to make hard decisions, we would certainly be transparent and articulate those and what that impact would be. I'm going to take the high road that we're not going to have to go there, but we would certainly do that. So we realize when we make decisions, what are we really doing? I just want to follow up. If I misrepresented my point about the facility study, certainly this year FY27 operational budget is going to have focused on maintenance and some improvements and ongoing maintenance needs. I just think that study is going to probably highlight probably some capital needs that are going to be beyond the FY27 budget. I just wanted to clarify that. If I misrepresented that, that was not my intent.
Received. Thank you. Anybody else?
I just like to make a couple points. I think one of the things that folks need to pay attention to that we're hearing here is that level service does not mean level cost. And I know a lot of the folks here understand that for the most part, but there are cost centers that remain reasonably out of our control, like the health insurance, the charter schools. So, if we're looking at next year's budget and saying, let's just maintain level set services and we'll maintain level set taxation, that's really just not a choice. To maintain the same level of services, the costs are increasing, whether we want them to increase or not. And I know that discussion has taken place around this topic of this would be a great way to reduce taxation or stop tax increases. Reality is that is not what will happen, right? If we don't increase taxes by some amount, then we have to make up for these cost increases that we're talking about tonight. The other thing I think that's really important for all of us to be aware of is what happens with state aid as we move forward, right? We're all very well aware of spending that has taken place in the Commonwealth, and most of you are probably also aware of discussions around things like the Municipal Empowerment Act, the ability or potential ability for municipalities throughout the Commonwealth to do things like increasing restaurant and meals taxes on a town-by-town basis, increasing excise taxes on a town-by-town basis. I'm personally very much against that, but I actually see that as a warning sign that the administration continues to push so hard for those things to be enacted. I personally see no need to support additional taxation for the residents of our town, especially in those specific areas. I know how much everybody loves paying their excise tax bill, and they're just dying for it to double or triple. But it's something that I've been concerned about since the topic was originally raised, and I remain concerned about it, especially as it is, continues to be advocated for heavily by the administration as far as what will this mean going forward for state aid. And we just need to keep our antennas up about it because it's something to watch.
Received and understood. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. We need a motion to close the tri-board meeting.
Should we close the meeting?
Second?
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hocker. Let's go around to the chair people, maybe?
To close the meeting?
Motion to close.
Motion to close the meeting.
I second.
Motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll take a 5-minute timeout, recess, if you will, to reorganize the communications equipment. Thank you.
Their whole thing is that they're not going to increase taxes. We can spend billions of dollars, there's no tomorrow, and circumvent procurement laws and doing it.
something. I'm going, oh, Jesus. There's a rubber band or something.
And the dump trucks are my regular, you know, they make those down, salt there.
Posted this, though, we should probably, yeah, we should probably wait till 8 o'clock, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it's part of the legal notice, too. Sure. Sure.
Yes.
Okay, rather than start the public hearing early, let's move on to an old business item or two, just so we can keep on moving in a sense. Recommended Director of Natural Resources appointment.
So maybe I'll take this as slowly as possible, because I think the last item may take some time. It really is a privilege to report on the process for the recruitment and recommendation for the next Director of Natural Resources. As you recall, we said our goodbyes to Dave at one of your most recent meetings. And since then, and prior to that, we've participated in the very thorough recruitment process. Anyone that knows our Human Resources Director, she does an incredibly thorough and professional process of recruitment of town employees. So this year's process for this position included a review team, including our chairman, Charlie Holden, myself, town manager Bud Dunham, Director of Community Development, Leanne Drake, and of course, Marie Buckner. And we interviewed 2 candidates. Both were excellent and very qualified candidates. After careful consideration, the town manager is recommending Jenna Silva to the position. She has 15 years of experience in natural resource management and wildlife management, including work at the Massachusetts Division of Marine Fisheries and Wildlife, Fisheries and Wildlife, Mass Audubon, and the Cape Cod Wildlife Center. She also served as an animal control officer for the town of Sandwich and a conservation agent for the town of Dartmouth. She has a really wide range of direct and practicable experience in the work that's done in that department. She holds a bachelor's degree in wildlife sciences from Paul Smith College and is currently participating in the Mass Municipal Association's Suffolk Certificate Program in Local Government. She is a friendly, fair, dependable individual. We've been lucky enough to work with her for a little over a year. She's intelligent and a really lovely member of our team. And so there's a lot more information in your packet, including her resume, which outlines the details of her qualifications. But we are recommending Jenna Silva to fill the position of the Department of Natural Resources.
Yes, she's a terrific choice, I thought. Gave a great interview, has a great resume, good experiences. It all looked good to me.
Make a motion that we appoint Jenna Silva as the Department of Natural Resources Director.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. A discussion on our, the start time of our next meeting, December 18th. There's an interview process before that, and I know that we were speaking about 4, but 4:30 is starting to look better. Any other comments? Okay, we just need a consensus on that, right?
We did, yes, that would be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I have none.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I could give you a brief overview on the liquor licenses that may help you in the discussion of the licenses. You may not have time to dive into that, but I can at least give you something to think about before we start.
Okay, please.
So our licensing agent, Melissa Carroll, provided me with a terrific report today in preparation for this meeting. And there are a couple of things that you should know moving into the license season. One, all of the licenses presented this evening, we are recommending that the board, looking for the right word, but extend those for the next calendar year. There are 2 licenses that will be available effective January 2 because they did not seek to renew or did not submit all of their paperwork. Those come from the China Palace, and that is an on-premise all alcoholic beverages license. So that will be available for another potential licensee. And then, as you know, the Dunbar Restaurant and Tea Room has had a on-premise wine and malt license, but the on-premise program that we did through the state legislature made a full all-alcohol license available to them that they will be exercising in the coming calendar year. That will liberate a single wine and malt on-premises license. So those will provide some opportunity to provide services to the community.
Great. As we expand into a discussion of the seasonal population estimate, et cetera, we could catch up on any points on the first line that we might have missed, if I can say it that way.
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay. As we discuss the seasonal population,
yes,
if there's anything that we missed on the license renewals, we can insert that into the discussion about the population,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay. So I have 8 o'clock. So let's reconvene, and under Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended by Chapter 369 of the Acts of 1982 and Chapter 79 of the Acts of 1983, the Select Board will conduct a public hearing on whether the town of Sandwich should implement the Classification Act for fiscal 2026. Said hearing will be conducted on Thursday, December 4th, 2025, at 8 p.m. in the auditorium at Sandwich Town Hall, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts. At the hearing, the Select Board shall take testimony as to what will be the residential factor, which will determine the share of taxes each classification will pay for fiscal year 2026. what will be the open space factor, and whether there will be a residential exemption and/or small commercial exemption. Motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Snitch.
Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for staying. And Dave, thanks for coming back for one more year.
That's the main reason I returned.
I know. You just wanted to see it one more time? All right. So my name is Ben Steich. I'm the Director of Assessing. I'm here today, as Mr. Holden described, is to do the classification hearing for FY26. First, I just want to thank my staff. They do a tremendous job all year to gather all the information, go to all the property visits, and without them, I really couldn't be doing this right now and on time. So classification hearing is held every year to determine whether we shift the portion of the property tax burden from one class of property to another, and it must be done before we can set the tax rate. So there'll be four options presented to you tonight to reallocate that tax. Those classes of property that we have in town, we have 1 residential, 2 open space, 3 is a commercial, 4 is the industrial, and 5 is the personal property. This year, our full and fair cash value is estimated as of today to be just shy of $8 billion, about 7.5% increase from FY25. Our fiscal 2026 excess levy capacity is currently estimated at just over $4 million. Last year, I think we were at 3.7, so about $300,000 increase. So this is how the values they shook out for the year based off of the calendar year sales that we use for 2024. It doesn't necessarily reflect today's market value because we always operate from a year behind. So the single family homes, the average value now is $767,200, which is up 6.9%, almost 7% from last year. Condos, $432,000, a little over 7% increase from last year. The 2 families are $835,900, which is a 3.5% increase from last year. The 3 families, $894,400, another 7%. The 109s or the multi-dwelling lots were at 1.2, up another 7% from last year. Vacant land actually went down. Our commercial properties stayed pretty steady at $842,000. Industrial property went up pretty steady again at $584,000. And then our mixed-use properties at 1.1. So this is how the levy kind of breaks out using the estimated tax rate that I presume is going to be pretty close to 1020. As you guys can obviously see, we know the makeup of the town. We don't have a lot of commercial, industrial, and personal property. So the valuation, the residential class really takes up almost 90% of that levy that we have to raise every year. So what's the impact on the single-family home going to be for this year? So we have a value of $767,200 with an estimated tax rate of 1020. You're looking at an average bill of $7,800. Currently, right now, the state average, this is estimated, not all towns have been reported on this yet, so I suspect that number to come down, but right now they're at a little over $8,000 on a state average. So these are the options that we have today for shifting that tax levy over. The first option is a split tax rate, which allows the shift of the tax burden from the residential class of property to the commercial, industrial, personal property. The second option we have is the open space discount. We may reduce the amount of the tax levy paid by the open space class to no less than 75% or a 25% discount of its full and fair cash value share of the levy. Then we have the residential exemption, which allows for the shift of the portion of the residential tax burden from primary residents to second homeowners, primary residents with higher value homes, property values. And then the small commercial exemption creates a shift to reduce the taxes paid by the owners of these properties occupied by these small businesses and shifts them to the larger commercial industrial taxpayers. So, with the using the estimated tax rate again of 1020, a factor of 1 meaning everybody pays the same amount, no matter what class of property you are. Having never shifted before in the historically in town, you automatically have to shift at least to 50%. You see that it does reduce the residential rate to $9.59, but it increases our commercial, industrial, and personal property to $15.30. For purposes of the amount of money, you're looking at saving, a residential property about $400, but you're increasing the commercial class $4,200. So it's kind of detrimental to our commercial, industrial, personal property because we don't have a lot. So the Board of Assessors recommends a residential factor of 1 or no shift. So this is another tool, I'll say, we have that DOR puts out. The minimum residential factor is used to make sure that the shift of the tax burden complies within the law per DLS and the gateway calculation that we have. Because the FY25 residential percentage of the 89.2557 is greater than the FY26 minimum residential share of 83.8834, it would cause the residential taxpayers to pay higher percentage share than they did last year, which is not allowed under the Chapter 200 Acts of 1988, which was amended for the Mass General Laws, Chapter 58, Section 1A. The Board of Assessors, again, recommends a factor of 1 or no shift. The open space discount is pretty simple. Like I said, it's a 25% discount. We don't have any open space in town of Sandwich that classifies under Class 2. What we do have, as we call open space, is all associated with development or tax-exempt property. It's all classified under that. So this option is not applicable for the town. The residential exemption, this was enacted in 1979. The residential exemption is an option under property tax classification that shifts that tax burden within the residential class from owners of moderately valued homes to owners of second homes, higher valued homes, and residential properties not occupied by the owner, and that including apartments and vacant land. How it works is the Select Board may authorize up to 35% exemption to qualifying Sandwich residents. The reduction in value is applied to qualifying properties, and the burden shifts to non-qualifying properties. The properties must be their primary residence of owners they use for their income tax purposes. Adopting the residential exemption doesn't result in an increased tax rate. And I will say that there's a typo on here because we currently estimate that 84% are resident, and that should say 16% not resident. Currently, there are 20 communities out of 351 in the Commonwealth that have adopted the residential exemption. But the Board of Assessors recommends no residential exemption. So this is the calculation that you have to do when it comes to the residential exemption. So you take all the residential property value and you divide it by the total residential parcels to come up with a value of that 706 for the average. So then you take what we figure what the eligible parcels would be out of those 10,000. We figure a little over 8,400 will be eligible for this. And then for each level of percentage off, because that levy has to be collected, it gets shifted to a higher value properties, vacant land, and apartments. So as you increase the percentage rate in the exemption, you can see the tax rate increases from 1020 to 1227. So, with all that in place, we have a point in town because we don't have a lot of high-valued homes, a lot of second homes. We don't have a lot of apartments, and we don't have a lot of vacant land anymore. There comes a point within that calculation, and that point, our break-even point this year is $840,650. So what that means is that bills for all vacant lot owners, second homeowners, and any qualified owner that would be a full-time resident of Sandwich that would have qualified for this residential exemption would end up paying more. So if your house was valued at over $840,000, regardless of your status in town, you would pay more money based off of that, just because we don't have the base to spread it. Because of that, the Board of Assessors recommends no residential exemption. The last option is like the residential exemption. It's a discount of up to 10% off of assessed value of commercial class property that is occupied by a business that has qualified by the Department of Unemployment Assistance. We get a list every year. It's a confidential list that we have to go through, listing every business in town that qualifies. So some of the parameters around that exemption is that you have no more than 10 employees. The assessed valuation of that property has to be below $1 million. This higher rate creates a shift that reduces the taxes paid by the owners of the properties occupied by the small businesses and shifts them to the larger commercial industrial taxpayers. It's important to note that this only applies to the property owner and not the small business leasing the space. If a 10% small commercial exemption should be in place, you're looking at an increase to 1090 in a tax rate. So with all those factors in place, the Board of Assessors did recommend no small commercial exemption. So in summary, Board of Assessors recommends to the Select Board on option 1, split tax rate, doing a residential factor of 1. On the open space discount, obviously it's not applicable to the town of Sandwich. The residential exemption, the board recommends not adopting one. And then the small commercial exemption, the Board of Assessors recommends not adopting a small commercial exemption. Next slide.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah. Any questions, guys?
Any questions from the board, Mr. Steitch?
I have a question slash comment, but we could just roll back a few slides here where it shows the tax levy amount. This slide right here. Yep, go forward. There we go, that one. I think this is really critical for folks to take a look at as far as how do we get to where we are. And the reason for this is that very often folks like to evaluate our tax status for the town of Sandwich based on what the tax rate is. And one of the things I always point back to is where does the tax rate come from? And the tax rate is the product of, it's really the quotient in this case, right, of what our total budget is as a town and how that divides out across the value of the property. So as much as this may be a tax rate classification hearing, which is focused on classification more so than the rate itself, we are not arbitrarily determining what the tax rate looks like. And it has long been my opinion that the tax rate in and of itself is a very poor barometer on what taxation looks like in the town of Sandwich or any town for that matter. The tax rate is really derived from where our budget lands and what the levy amount is in the community. And if anybody else would like to comment on this, you're certainly welcome to, but I think that it's really important for folks to recognize what that truly means. And this tax rate is not a number that is pulled out of thin air.
Thank you. Anybody else on the board? Does anyone from the public have a question for Mr. Steitch? Okay. Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Jeff Picard, 24 Captain Payne Road. If you could go back early on, as there was a slide where you had assessed values, I believe. Oh, right here. I believe this is it. Oh, you had I thought I heard you say, and that's why I had to go back, maybe I misread it. I thought I heard you say either here or elsewhere, with respect to commercial and industrial, that the value of it had dropped from last year to next year. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, I think if you look at this slide here under the commercial class, the
Well,
300.
this may be the wrong slide, but did you? I was trying to understand if I heard you incorrectly.
Well, the value, if you look at this slide, the value increased on commercial industrial, each one respectively 1.96 in valuation and 2.19.
Okay, so they did increase. So I did hear.
The values increased, correct.
Okay, so I heard that incorrectly. I thought I heard the value went down. Okay.
No.
And then the other question I had was and I know residential, demand for residential, demand for commercial get driven by different parameters and so forth. I was curious, do you understand why residential, went up 6.5%, 7%, and commercial only went up 2%? That's a big difference in value change between those two classifications. One, do we understand why? And then the second, is that consistent with what other towns saw? As it was said earlier, we're looking at what the tax is going to be. It all depends upon what the budget is. The budget has to support it. And then that distribution, you're recommending a factor of 1. And I understand why. If the value of the commercial and industrial was higher, it's still, even with a factor of 1, we still would offset some more of what the residents are burdened with. So what I was trying to understand, when you go through this, do you have the opportunity to look at data and understand, does this make sense? Why did industrial and commercial, and I understand different parameters drive them, go up so differently? And is that consistent with what the other sections of the state is seeing?
Yes, it is. And why you see that discrepancy, all of our values are based off of the sales market. So obviously, residential property, you have a lot more sales, right? Commercial, industrial, you don't. We've had a few, and that's why you see it. The percent change is so different. It's all based off of sales market.
And okay, I understand that. And then and you're saying it is consistent with, so if we looked elsewhere in the state and other towns, on Cape, off Cape, we would see this kind of difference where residential changed, 6-7%, but industrial only changed around 2%.
Well, I would think that, if you're looking throughout the state, Sandwich is unique. It's different from Plymouth. It's different from Boston. It's different from, Orleans. They're not going to be right on, dollar for dollar or percent across the state. Every town is different.
No, I understand that every town's different. I've also sat in town meetings where we've argued that, this makes sense because look we're like Plymouth, more like Plymouth than we are like Outer Cape. So the story changes, depends upon what we're trying to argue. I'm just asking, is there any kind of way of looking and saying this makes sense? Because it could lead to other things. Are we doing the right things to encourage businesses to come here? Are we doing the right things for encouraging businesses to stay? Are we doing the right things for encouraging businesses to invest? And data like this might help give us some indication of that. That's all I'm asking.
So when we go through this process, we only focus on what Sandwich is doing.
No, I understand.
And that's how it comes down to it. When the state looks at those numbers, they're concerned about what's happening in Sandwich, not so much what's happening in Bourne or Falmouth or Mashpee. And that's why we see that percentage. I mean, that percentage for commercial property could be 7% across the border, but they had more sales to compare that to. And that's what drives these numbers, is what people are paying for the property.
I understand the basis of what this is. I was just wondering if, complementary to it, you can use the data to help understand other things that are going on which affect and influence taxes.
We cannot.
Ms. Harper?
So you're asking excellent questions that are not really related to the process that we're having a hearing on this evening. You are very well informed on land use policy and infrastructure investment, and those are the things that would drive changes in the commercial real estate market. It isn't part of the tax rate setting process, and that tax share that you see for commercial properties is a reflection of what is. It may not be a reflection of what you might want. So this is what is, this is what happened in that fiscal year. It's a reflection of that, and it's what we use as a basis for setting the tax rate.
I understand all that, and I understand this hearing and what the basis of the hearing and so forth. My questions were more around taking the opportunity of having data. What else have we asked ourselves about that data? One, it's a way of verifying the data is correct. I understand it's based on sales. Two, though, it helps influence other decisions we're making. Earlier this season, we were talking about the budget. Comments were made at that time about what a level budget means relative to taxes. Earlier, it was said during this hearing about taxes and tax rate versus taxes and what individuals are paying. So I think the opportunity of any discussion by this board, select board, town assessors, any other boards, should be an opportunity to reflect on knowledge and data and what does it mean and where are we going. As it's not just the town experiencing 12.5% increase in health, it's us also experiencing huge increases in health, so that we all hurting. It's not just the town. Increased tax rate is going to hurt us all. So that was the reason for my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the select board?
Ben, and this is just for, to Dave's point as well, as how the values are assessed, is that, and I'll give you a hypothetical, is that these values, the average assessed values, are based off of sales from this past year, correct?
They're based off the market from 2024.
Okay. So when we do the assessments, it typically trails 2 years behind for what is sold, what was reported as sold, and that as a reflection of that, if hypothetically instead, if the value percent went down in a bad market, the tax rate would go up, the values come down. To Dave's point, it's really just balancing a bucket one way or the other. Values go up, tax rate comes down. Values go down, the tax rate per thousand goes up. Is that
correct?
It's based off of sales from 2 years ago. So if you as the argument comes when things go negatively instead of positively, is that my neighbor sold his house for $400,000 and my house you have assessed at $700,000, but these are based off of sales from 2 years ago, not last week, 2 weeks ago, last year. It's really a 2 year. So there's a time lag as you go through this process.
There is. It's the state's guidelines that we have to follow. What we have to analyze, the time period that we have to analyze, the parameters we have to fall in with valuations and all sorts of ratios that get involved with it.
These are not values that are set by the town of Sandwich.
These are not set by the town of Sandwich. I mean, these are, well, we produce the product, right? That product ends up going to the Department of Revenue. They make sure that we fall within their guidelines, and then they approve our valuations.
Real world compilation. Yes. Yes. Anybody else from the public? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay. I'm coming to that. That we close the public hearing. Now we'll do the motion.
Make a motion, we move to continue the use of residential factor 1, not to grant an open space discount, not to grant residential exemptions, not to grant small commercial exemption.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was worth it.
All of us, Ben? Sure.
Where do we get to sign these, Joe? Right in here?
Yeah, fine. We'll all fit.
I was just saying, it's very rare we get to sign off on things for $7 billion plus. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Okay, returning to business. Ms. Harper, did you have anything else on the renewals and et cetera?
I do. I have one more item on the renewals. The first piece was actually two. The first piece was just on the licenses that will be available in the coming year, so that you're aware of those as we look ahead to the January timeframe. The two others are first related to a license that's relative to a structure that's no longer in existence. We know that there's a restaurant that was demolished, Captain Seafood Bar and Grill. We are recommending that you go ahead and renew that license for next year. And that comes on a, sort of a long practice working with town council and the ABCC, that the recommendation on any license, even if it's on a property such as that you renew the license. If you have an interest in making a different decision moving forward, that you do hold a hearing with the license holder. You provide them an opportunity to cure any defects with the license or set very clear parameters and expectations of the board to ensure that they are providing the service to the community that's expected. And that is based on ABCC practice. If that process doesn't occur, that they remand the license back to the town. Certainly, it is 100% the board's decision on how you want to handle that, but that is our recommendation based on town council and ABCC practice.
Do we have any update on either one of those as to where that stands now?
A little bit about Captain Seafood. That I understand is in a foreclosure process. I don't know the details around it. It is for sale. There's a very large for sale sign up there. It has also been secured. The building department's role is simply securing the premises with a fence, which is existing. And it is in the hands of the Department of Environmental Protection for remediation. Other than that, I really don't know the specifics around the property, but if there's a significant investment and there's some insurance claims, obviously, that would need to be garnered to make the remediation happen. So,
Just as a point of fact, I don't believe that the property is in foreclosure.
okay.
I know that it was listed somewhere online with a foreclosure flag, but I don't believe that's actually the case. Not that it probably impacts what we need to discuss anyway, but.
I don't want to spread incorrect information, so thank you.
Well, I saw the posting, so I went and looked at the Registry of Deeds, and it appeared that was not the case.
Okay.
So,
It is actively on the market.
Yes.
yes, there's no question about that. And it also appears that the owners do not intend to rebuild. I do think there's something to be said for, to renew the license, I assume they've bought insurance and done all these things to maintain the license.
The license is in good standing.
So they've come up with an insurance policy for 2026.
I cannot verify that.
Renew the license, they would need.
Yes.
Would need to do that.
My understanding is
that would
they
be
have
my
a complete
question.
packet.
I do think that there's some amount of runway that exists for something like this, but then there's also, at some point, we have to say, how long do you get to hold on to this license for? Because when some other business owner wants to establish their place in town, and there's a license that's actually not being utilized to serve the community, it doesn't seem to be appropriate that someone just holds on to that license indefinitely.
Then that's not what we're recommending. We're recommending the most efficient way to do that is to hold a hearing with an active
I
license
understand.
holder.
I'm just verbalizing my thoughts on the situation, right? So short term, from my perspective anyway, short term, if it gets renewed, okay. But at some point, we need to evaluate what is or is not going on in regards to this license. This can't, at least in my opinion, this is not something that should go on for years.
No, we did that once before.
Did we? Yeah, I don't even remember.
It was the Bobby Burns. That
Oh,
hung in
okay.
there for years, but we were waiting for them to sell and potential buyers and whatever.
But what actually happened was the license got sold.
Right. And then it went
So
away.
the licenses are, and we've talked about this before, but these licenses are assets. So, we need to pay attention.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Ellis.
I have a question on this list. I'm assuming we're gonna move these as one motion. So my question is, how important is the accuracy of the folks who are listed as managers and/or addresses, et cetera? So if we make, on the first section on the annual, about 2 meetings ago, Sandwich Pizza came in for a change of manager. Mark Peterson had sold the property, and there were new folks taking over. And they're listed as number 4 under the annuals. And I haven't seen anything else that I recognize as that, but I did notice that one.
Again, I would say that would be something that would be adjusted by the ABCC. Remember, that gets approved here and goes
Moving
up.
the address, and then
Right.
they'll verify the manager based on
Well,
what we have. I understand that.
I think this is our list, though, right? So this list may just need to be updated.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. If they just fix this.
One thing I did think was interesting, and I don't think I've seen a table like this before, is the entertainment licenses and the hours of operation for entertainment, particularly in regards to indoor and outdoor. And some of these addresses, it's very interesting that they hold outdoor entertainment licenses until 12:45 a.m. Like, I can't imagine the Daniel Webster having outdoor entertainment until 12:45 a.m. That seems like an opportunity for problems. I guess that's not happening, so I'm not trying to create an issue where there isn't one. It's just interesting.
I think when some of them came in, they just went for the maximum.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that, off the grid shows no indoor entertainment and only outdoor entertainment.
What I can say is our licensing manager is very thorough.
Oh, and I agree with that. I'm
Yeah.
not, this is no knock on her. I just,
I know.
I just think some of this stuff is probably legacy, to be honest with you.
It is a reflection of what is.
But it's in front of you, it's more interesting, right? Especially in a table like this, because I just haven't seen these times segmented like this before.
And some of them, I think, ZBA have restrictions on them, like the Belfry, I think, is restricted to like 10 o'clock because of their proximity to residences.
I think there's a zone, my recollection is in the historic district, you have to get a zoning variance for outdoor entertainment. So there probably are some boundaries established by those variances. Because you also have to get a variance for outdoor seating, I believe. Zoning is not my expertise.
And just going back to the one that we were discussing before, I mean, if we're renewing it now, we should probably have the discussion that goes along with what the next step is, because this will get dropped, once it gets renewed, we won't see it for another year. I don't know, I mean, I guess, as the license holder, I think, in my opinion, if that, in an unusual circumstance, such as, what's occurred, is that, typically when if a business, burns down, they're making, active strides to rebuild the, the business, and there's, applications for a rebuild, or there's construction going on down there, but that, I just looked it up on my phone, I believe that the fire down there was in early June. It was June 2nd. So, we're already 6 months beyond. The fence is there, the building's still on the ground there, in a, I would say a problematic state. And they have a for sale sign in the front yard, so they're not rebuilding it. So, maybe it would make sense to have the license holder come in after the first of the year when the licenses kick in, assuming they met all the requirements with the insurance. And I don't even know how that works, because there's not a building there, that they're insuring, right, for, actively using a license, and they're obviously not going to rebuild it. So, I mean, maybe we set a date, the first or second select board meeting, that we ask the license holder to come in and explain what the plan is, and we set at that point, we set a timeline.
Unless, okay, but unless the owner is in violation of state law, we can't make a business decision for him.
No, but we're the owners of the license. So if they're not gonna use the license, and somebody else wants the license, and they have no, intention in the foreseeable future, because I think that even if, best case scenario, if they, if they came in and said, we sold the property tomorrow, that license on that location, you're a year of planning, a year of construction, we're tying that license up for, in my eyes, a minimum of 2 years, that it can't be used, or is not gonna be used.
Mr. Chairman, I'd say the hearing is the opportunity for the board to get official record, on the record information from the license holder about their intent related to the utilization of the license. And your job is to provide a service to the community. And if that isn't available to the community, then you have the opportunity to make, either ask for specific performance standards, whether they be timeframes, or just a plan for the exercise of the license. It is not necessarily a punitive exercise, but it is your opportunity to hear from the license holder, and it's the appropriate forum for you to do that.
Yeah, I'm not looking to take his license the first week of January. I think that's if I'm not mistaken, like Heather just said, I think that's the appropriate forum to have him speak to us, and we speak back to him as far as, what their plans are, because, to Dave's point, those are, they're valuable, but if it's not going to get used, it's not going to get passed on to there's some questions around, financial, whatever. I don't believe that it's in, foreclosure. I've heard the same thing, but, it's also concerning that the site wasn't cleaned up, at this point as well.
Can we, how do we go about getting that property cleaned up? I've had a lot of people mention it. Can the town go forward and clean that property up and put a lien on the property? So when the property is sold, we get paid for what we have to do?
I think at this point, the property is not in a position where the town can step in. It's still actively owned by a private party. There's a DEP.
I agree, but
yeah.
it is a hazard.
I think
Know
that,
that, and do we go to the building inspector and say, hey, does this need to get cleaned up?
the DEP is currently the active regulatory authority.
'Cause it's been 6 months.
Is
so
it considered a, is it because of the debris, or is it because of a spill, or is it both, or?
I would make assumptions if I were going to answer that question. I don't know.
We've talked about this several times. Can we proceed to get something moving to get this cleaned up with DEP? Or?
We can certainly reach out to DEP, but it is the owner's responsibility to execute the cleanup.
As long as they're paying their tax bills.
Mhm.
Even though it's a hazard, he can still leave it there.
I don't know enough about this process to give you an informed answer, but I will inquire with DEP about what that responsibility level is.
I'm sure it has to do with insurance. Who's responsible for that?
If they're an imminent risk or hazard,
Yes.
then we would have public health in there. They're all aware of it. Our staff are familiar with the site. They believe that it's secure, and that it is in a state that it can remain and not be a public health hazard. Is it a nuisance? Is it unpleasant? Yes. Are there existing conditions that need to be remediated? Absolutely. But at the current condition, it's not something the town can go in and remediate.
There's got to be some hooks on this around insurance, I would expect, right? And I'm sure that folks are arguing over who pays for what.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a long time.
Yes.
From personal experience, so.
Yes.
It's just unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. We do monitor it.
I mean, the only thing we could probably do is attempt to put pressure and urgency on it. And I don't even know if there's a real way for us to do that, so.
It would be a hearing. Have them come in for the hearing is the license.
Yeah, but still our real authority on it is, I don't think it exists.
Let's say if the board would like to schedule a hearing, we can, I don't think we need a vote here. We can work with the chairman and bring it back as a recommendation and schedule a time for that.
Be worthwhile to gather some information. Okay, so we need a,
The other thing I would just put in is it's not, this is not a dig or a slight at the owners of the current property or what they went through. It's just that we have a, responsibility, fiduciary responsibility, as well as, an obligation to, the town and everybody that, those licenses, as everyone knows, are extremely limited in Sandwich. So, we need to, it's a continual thing where we have to monitor, who has it, who's using it, who's not using it, and they're important, and they're also important revenue generators for the town. So if they're not being used, we technically are losing, tax dollars by those not being, utilized as intended. So.
it's up for sale. The DEP has not indicated that there are any hazards there.
It is under, I don't want to use the wrong terminology. I'm not familiar with this type of site assessment, but there is a DEP order of some kind on the property that requires them to do a cleanup.
Okay.
I haven't seen the order. We'll get a copy of it.
Yes, please. I think that's all we can do right
Mhm.
now. Okay, so do we need we need a vote to, no?
I don't think you need a vote on captains. I think you do need a vote on all the licenses.
Yes, yes,
Well, we have to renew their license.
Yes.
yes.
All right, so we make a motion on the whole thing. Make a motion, we approve the annual 2026 license renewals for approval liquor New Year's Eve liquor, extensions, entertainment, amusement, inn holders, Class 1, Class 2, auto dealers, livery, secondhand dealers, and collectors.
As distributed, yes.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you. Seasonal population estimate for Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission.
Thorough deliberation with the town clerk, recommended, same as last year.
Do you need a motion on that?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Motion on that, okay. I make a motion, we approve the seasonal population estimate for Alcohol Beverage Control Commission.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just for
Unanimous.
the public's benefit, the seasonal population estimate is 37,000.
Okay. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair, I have none. Anybody here for public comment? Any closing remarks? Okay,
Just one.
Yes, Mr. Ellis.
I just wanted to compliment the businesses in Sandwich and the 83 Giants that are everywhere in Sandwich, and encourage people to get out there and see them, and congratulate everybody on how great the village looks and the entire town.
Right, the sandwich,
And be warm for tomorrow night.
right, the sandwich
That's more.
stroll and the carolers, and there'll be bell ringing, and all good. All good. And then the broad holiday season begins on the 14th with Hanukkah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
And then just a couple of quick ones on December 15th. Sandwich Cares is doing their monthly presentation at the SCAL, the Center for Active Living, and Bikeways is also meeting at Sand Hill School on the 15th, and it should be an interesting update from Mr. Rhodes from VHB on the proposed connection from the canal to the shared use path on the service road. And even though we've seen some progress, please continue to maintain the situation in Eastern Europe and the conditions in the Middle East as overall threats to world peace in your thoughts and prayers during this holiday season. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Our next meeting is Thursday, December 18th at 4:30 PM here in Historic Town Hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you all have time between now and then to sign licenses, there's quite a stack. We'll also bring them to your next meeting. If you're comfortable with the stamp